tuned in to the Keetria Show and listening to SOB, Style of Business, the podcast with your host, Keetria. We aim to highlight the ongoing trek of entrepreneurs and business owners from around the globe, featuring stories that recount their struggles, experiences, and inevitable road to success and self-fulfillment. Welcome to SOB.
This podcast is being brought to you by my inspiring new book titled Courage is a Muscle, Using Heart to Power Your Entrepreneurial Dreams. You can grab your copy today on Amazon. Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another hot episode of SOB, Style of Business, the podcast. This is your host, Keetria, and today I'm talking to another wonderful guest. We're talking to the fantastic Ace Piva. This gentleman is one of the founding partners over at Over the Bridge, which is an organization based in Toronto, and these guys are doing some great work in the music industry to help with mental health awareness and also a lot of advocacy work and raising awareness when it comes to the industry and helping different professionals overcome addiction and to really make sure that they're keeping their life on the straight and narrow, because we know like the industry can be very overwhelming and there's a lot of things that kind of come into it, especially when you're at the forefront of being a an influencer, mover and shaker, and you got a lot of fans and things like that. So thankfully we have people, we have people like this wonderful gentleman, Ace, who's doing some great things in the industry and has been for a while now. So he's going to drop that introduction. We're going to get into the conversation, talking about mental health, addiction, and, all the wonderful goodness that Ace has to offer. So without further ado, Mr. Ace Piva, go ahead and drop that introduction for us, and we will keep the ball rolling.
Well, Keetria, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I've had a chance to take a listen to a few of your episodes, and I want to thank you for the great work you are doing by, bringing the word to the people, to your fans, and to, anybody who tunes in. So thank you very much for that. As far as myself, I started off in 95, 96 as a local drumming musician who just, played in a band just like anybody else. Over time, as any, young musicians do, you like to, get out and play, do some performing, put yourself out there. So, I was just a guy in the band who, figured that out, how to approach the local clubs. And then when it was time for us to do, more provincial and national touring across Canada, this was around the time that email was just kind of becoming a thing. It really wasn't quite established yet. Yeah. So, I'd be spending my Friday and Saturday nights in local music chat rooms on MSN Messenger and things like that, those old chat forums and stuff like that. So, as I grew up the guys in my band, they wanted to get real jobs and I wasn't quite ready yet. So, next to drumming, my biggest assets were the organizational part of it. Yeah. Tours and, keeping guys on the road and tow to make sure that we're arriving where we need to be. So as, I got older, my roles grew and ended up becoming a tour manager. I've worked with a number of Canadian artists, American artists, Danish pop singers, metal bands from all across Europe. And I've had the pleasure of touring every state and province across North America except for Alaska and Hawaii. So,
oh, wow, yeah, that's extensive.
Yeah, so, whether it's by, a lot of it was done by van and trailer and then eventually tour bus and then, just flying and things like that. So as my career progressed, so did the ways we traveled and things like that. But how I got into Over the Bridge was I was out with an artist who was in recovery, and then he had a pretty bad relapse on tour. And yeah, so as the artist was up on stage every night, he although he was in recovery, he had relapsed, he was still up there preaching about him being sober, which wasn't the truth, and that broke my heart. So during this tour, after multiple nights of that, me and him got in a pretty heated argument about him doing interviews that he was asking to get while he was still in recovery or before his relapse. But since his relapse, he wasn't doing any of the responsible thing that you need to do as an artist on tour, which is do interviews.
Yeah.
So after that, I left the bus, was all heated. I bumped into a fan who had wanted to meet him. I asked him, there's a meet and greet and all this later on. And he's like, well, it's a little bit more personal. So I asked him for a story. And basically it was that he had this fan came to thank this artist for saving his life.
Oh, wow.
And it was such a paradox moment because on one shoulder, I'm really hot at this artist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like me and it, like a 4-hour fight. I just left the bus. I was 4 steps away from the bus, and this fan comes up to me and starts laying all this heavy stuff. Says the artist had saved his life, and I was like, no, I'm intrigued. I'm like, tell me about this. And the fan continues on, telling me that he was in active addiction for 12 years. He had overdosed 3 times. He had clinically died twice. And he had gone to rehab and detox and all these different treatment methods. But none of them stuck with him. But the one thing that did stick was the message that this artist had put on those recovery albums.
Oh, wow.
He had said that when he went into the treatment centers, that because he had come from like sort of a hip-hop or grew up in the hip-hop, culture and background, and there is, language barriers in between if you're so immersed into certain music cultures, that when he got into professional setting, you got doctors and therapists talking very clinical. And when you're at that point of your recovery, it was sort of all just wash. It didn't really connect with them, and they understood. And like, I know you're a music lover and I'm a music lover, but I've never had to rely on music to sort of guide me through those sort of life challenges. Maybe through emotions, breakups and feeling happy and things like that, but never quite to that extent.
Yeah.
And just to see the power of music and the power that an artist has, even though this artist had fallen off, fallen off, and he was, he eventually got back to his recovery, from what I hear, but just the power of music. So, I put in a little bit of thought into it. So I ended up going back to school. I became an addictions counselor. I worked at a bunch of different programs around my city. And then I just transferred those skills back into the music community. But because I was doing these face-to-face aftercare meetings in my groups, I realized, the power of peer support.
Right.
There's nothing more powerful than, just 2 people talking and a common understanding. I was there. I know your experience. We share these experiences, and now let's share these new experiences together in recovery. So then I started up a Facebook group. I named it Over the Bridge after the Red Hot Chili Pepper song Under the Bridge. I grew up. Yeah, like I grew up. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Chili Peppers have never been my end all and be all band.
Right. Yeah.
But they, that one, they have a bunch of great albums, a bunch of great songs, but that one particular song, it talks about Anthony Kiedis, the singer of Red Hot Chili Peppers, going under the bridge to partake. But eventually, he was able to get over it. So, we sort of took it off of that. And, then it led to us, building some partnerships outside of the group, to where we were able to offer naloxone training, which is, I believe, called Narcan in the States.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Narcan?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
All right, yeah. So, but for those who don't know, Narcan's a drug that you would administer to someone to reverse an opiate overdose. Mm-hmm. And with fentanyl, being such a massive, impactful drug on our society right now, it's up here. It's a state of emergency. Opiate overdoses have gone through the roof, especially since COVID, because everyone's trying to manage these stressors in difficult times. So,
exactly.
so, what we've been doing during regular times, and we are changing things up and seeing what we can do with the Ministry of Health in order to provide more public public training. But when things were before, we were meeting up with music venues, music festivals, and doing these training in an atmosphere where, people from the music community would feel welcome. And because, music community, we're out at all sorts of times of days, at nights, sometimes
exactly,
at 3 in the morning.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And when are you going to find somebody in trouble? Probably those times, right? So, so we just try to prepare people who are going to be most likely out and about at those times. We try to educate them, and we provide them with the Narcan/naloxone kits to save someone's life. And from what I've heard is, we've been able to give out over 1,400 kits, and they've saved a handful of lives. So, I'm very thankful for that. So, it's not just over the bridge, but the community, the music community, and just really people who care.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I love the fact that you mentioned that not only the music community, but now more than ever, there's definitely local people in the community that are attending these types, or at one point were attending different events, pre-COVID, I guess we would say. But one of the things I definitely want to get into is, as a musician or somebody who is, constantly on the road, you got the tour managers, you got the agents, you have the promoters, all sorts of people who are more or less, immersed in this nightlife culture, which is, it has a history and a tradition of being fueled with drugs and alcohol and, other things that we see, especially in like some of the most recent documentaries that have come out. I know you're probably familiar with a few of them that the first thing that, they show like the rocker or the rock and roll artist, they're doing a concert. After the concert, they're doing a line or two in the back, You know what I'm saying? So what I'd like to kind of discuss is when you like, say for instance, there's somebody that's listening, maybe they're one of these people that are touring with this type of person, or maybe they are this person. And, you've established this culture of doing this year after year after year. Sometimes they don't know they have a problem. So talk about that a little bit, Ace.
Well, I don't want to say music is a culture of yes men, because it definitely isn't.
Right.
But at the same time is when I have an artist explain it to me like this. This artist that I'm going to refer to, he was he had a one-hit wonder, guaranteed you've heard the song on the radio, right? And it's been a hit for over 20 years. But what he said to me was, during his early days of being a young, unknown musician, all you want to be is accepted. Right. You work your ass off. Sorry. You work hard to get known. And so when you start to get known by industry people, it's exciting, and you want everybody's approval. And since you've been working for so long to get people's approval, now maybe you've made it to the next level, and now people are buying you drinks all of a sudden. Well, whether it's a Friday night or a Monday or a Wednesday, to an artist, every night's a Friday night. Right. But they need to do this night. Every night is a Friday night. So, Tuesday's a Friday, Wednesday's a Friday, Thursday's a Friday. But for the people who come out to the shows, it is there maybe one time a year. They may go 3 or 4 times a year. And so they have the luxury of relaxing the next day. However, what they don't know is that artist needs to also drive 6, 8, 10 hours sometime after the show or the next day to get to the next show and redo it.
Right.
So, I'll admit I've had my weekend parties growing up and all that, and that Monday never feels good. But if every day is a Monday and you're expecting to act like it's a Friday, it takes a toll on you. But in addition, as the fans offer you the drinks, you say yes because you want to create an experience with that fan. You want them to be like, oh, I had a drink with so-and-so, or I did this with so-and-so. And it makes them feel lucky, and you create a memorable moment in that person's life. But once you start saying no, say, hey, I've already had too much, blah, blah, some fans can be kind of brutal, man. They'd be like, oh, you think you're too big of a rock star to have a drink with me? You're too good and all this. And coming from seeking approval for so many years, you always want to create a good experience. So night after night, you're getting 20, 30 shots, bought for you, especially if you're at the point of your career where you're like, you're playing clubs, but you still got to sell a lot of merch. So you go to the merch table after your show, you get those extra, couple $100 sales in, right? Because that couple $100 makes you, get to the next town. But guess what? People are lined up with shots. But how many shots can you take before you're obliterated, right?
Yeah, that's true. Right.
But if you say no, then all of a sudden you're a dick, right? And you're taking away someone's experience. So, and no one is groomed to take on popularity to that level. When you're up on stage, you're whether sometimes it's a bad show and your dopamines and serotonin levels in your brain are going wild because you're upset with the night, or maybe it's a great night and then your serotonin dopamine levels are going crazy because you're having a great night. And every night, whether it's a good or bad show, you have a range of emotions going through you because you're exposing yourself to, a room full of people, to be vulnerable. And then all of a sudden you start reading online, negative feedback, perhaps, oh, the sound wasn't great or this or that, and all that stuff is just people's opinions. Maybe someone's having a bad night and they wrote, this show sucked. Well, they didn't say that they had broken up with their boyfriend or girlfriend that night, right?
Yeah, right.
When they went to write the review, I have also had a bad day because of this. There's so many, and being a musician is tricky. So, actually, I got a question for you. Are you a parent? Are you a mother?
Yes,
or do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I am a parent, and I also have siblings as well. Yes, I do. On both sides.
So you're going to know what I'm talking about here. So, for an example, those days where you cook and you're in the kitchen and you're feeling proud, but then all of a sudden your kids get to dinner and all they think is like, oh, Mom, you cooked this. This was gross. Let's order pizza.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you put your heart and soul and you worked all day to make that dinner for someone, and they showed no respect, and it's hurtful.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a similar feeling that an artist deals with or puts himself in a position to be judged in every day. But instead of a household of people, it happens to be hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of emotional balancing.
Exactly. Well, I one of the things I wonder is if you could ever, is there a way that maybe an artist could kind of prep themselves to be, to not get into the traditional culture of the alcohol-fueled tours or, the drug-induced tours where there's a lot of drugs and stuff like that available? Do you think that there could ever be a way that it could be maybe determined ahead of time, or maybe they could be conditioned ahead of time not to kind of step into that zone? Because it's once they start doing it a couple of times, it's almost difficult to get out of that lifestyle. There's more challenges to get out.
Well, I believe there definitely is. First you gotta be self-aware. What things are you okay with? What things are you not okay with? These days, there are so many artists out there that are both in recovery and in sobriety, just out of choice and not because of addictions reasons. You know what I mean? So, but then there's also artists out there who do follow the AA mandate and all that. So you can definitely choose who you do shows with.
Oh, wow.
One thing is being aware of your emotions after a show. So you talk about substance use. Are they using it because maybe they're coping with a bad show, coping or not coping, but trying to manage feelings? Right. What feelings are they trying to manage? So being self-aware of your feelings is number one, but that is definitely a tall glass of water, because that takes a lot of self-work to do. But once you become, once you're able to self-reflect and just notice your feelings, you have a better chance at figuring out how you're going to manage those feelings. Is it to go and have a couple drinks and party it up all night, or have you realized that, hey, maybe I can take a moment to have some quiet time. Maybe I need to go back home. I was just listening to a podcast just before you and I got on a call, and they were talking about the entertainment industry. And sometimes the coolest thing for artists to do is not show up as an event, right? Because it keeps you, a little bit elusive.
Exactly.
So maybe it's better that it's cooler that you don't show up to that after party because everyone wishes you were there. So maybe you don't go to after the parties. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it can be a good time, but more often than not, nothing good happens after 12 o'clock.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right about that. Let me ask you this, Ace. Like, what are some signs to look for? You have just like you have people that are not aware, you also have people who are in denial. And then you have the loved ones, like the friends, the families, maybe it's the mother or spouse or whoever that is noticing like changes in behavior. But like, what are some classic signs that somebody has I don't even want to say just an addiction problem, but maybe there's some mental health issues that are going on as well. What are like a few of the classic signs? Those signs are different for a lot of people, but first is personal hygiene. If you notice someone isn't taking a shower, brushing their teeth as often as they should, taking care of those basic needs, that's often an early sign that something could be going on. Giving up on themselves, and they I shouldn't say giving up on themselves, but they're using different coping skills to manage, or coping skills that they think is beneficial for what they're going through. Or maybe they just simply forget because there's so much going on in their minds. Bathing skills, people who they're hanging out with, how they are maybe, one thing for me is self-talk, because we're always listening to our words, whether or not we realize it. Our brains, it's spitting it out, but we're also listening. Our ears are only 4 inches from our mouth. So self-talk, is it negative? Are they going, or are people thinking, or saying, I'm no good, I'm a loser, no one supports me, no one, my life sucks. Those sort of, if you say that enough, you're going to start believing it. And you're going to make decisions in order to sabotage yourself. Maybe not intentionally, but maybe you wouldn't be confident to take a leap of faith when an opportunity comes up. As opposed to being able to honestly say, I feel good today. I'm feeling right. Things are, I am amazing. And positive self-talk doesn't mean you're arrogant. Yeah. Being confident, just having confidence allows you to walk a different way because you're proud of who you are. And it starts off with what you tell yourself. No one's in the bathroom with you, first thing in the morning, every morning. No one's with you at night when you're alone except for you. Right. So that's the only person that you need to be impressing. And if you're feeling shitty and if you're feeling that things ain't right, we can blame it on everybody else, and that's and not to say there's not external factors, but how we react to these external factors will dictate on where we go. And if we feel like we're freaking out in a situation, that's okay. But just know that you don't need to react right then. It's okay to experience those feelings,
but to have to give an answer, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm going to need some time to think about that. Now, whether if it's a great opportunity or an opportunity that you're not too sure of, take a moment to sit back, reflect, play out the situation. If I take this gig, if I take this job, will I be happy there? Outside of, it's like, okay, you're getting paid, and sometimes you need to take the money because you need to take money, but realize that's not your end all and be all.
Yeah.
It's just you're bridging the gap for the moment.
Wow.
So start off with self-talk and improve that. I've been doing this on and off for years. I YouTube motivational speaking every morning on YouTube, and sometimes you listen to The Rock, CT is a big guy, all those guys, and you do the Stuart Little thing. You stand in front of the mirror, you say, hey,
right.
I'm proud of myself, and it sounds like a bunch of baloney, but man, when you start walking around and saying that, you start to believe it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So then when the opportunity comes, you might attack that opportunity a little bit different. You're going to sit there, you're going to plan, you're going to strategize. You're going to strategize to win instead of looking for a way out.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Love
Love it. Go ahead, Ace. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, we can keep on going down the rabbit hole because that's a deep one. But work on our self-awareness and our positive self-talk are probably two of the most important first steps that I think anybody can take. Love
that. That is very, very empowering. Yeah, I mean, and that's. I mean, I agree with you 1,000%. So we go from 100 to 1,000. That's definitely great and encouraging news for everybody who is listening. I love that. I love that message, Ace. And tell us a little bit before we get ready to wrap up. I know you guys have some different goals and initiatives for Over the Bridge, but maybe there's somebody who wants to get involved or somebody who's interested in getting more information and getting help through you guys' organization. Give us a little rundown as to how you guys work, and also if anybody wants to get involved with what you guys are doing.
Yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about Over the Bridge, just look us up on our website at overthebridge.org. If anybody feels like giving, we definitely have a donation button there, which definitely helps us out. But if you're looking for support, we currently run a Facebook group of over 1,100 music industry members, and sprinkled in with a few counselors and therapists to make sure things are right in times of crisis. We're there to support each other, bring out the best self-talk, bring out, I don't want to know what's bad about your life. I want to know what's good, right. Because it depends on what we focus on. So, I want to hear what you did good in your day. Tell me, even if it's like, I had a rough day, but, I brushed my teeth.
Right. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Exactly.
Because maybe this time last week, that was a challenge and you did not do that. So, we got to recognize those small little goals. Even if we don't set goals for ourselves, but it's about recognizing those achievements. We hear a lot of stuff on social media about, people need to take accountability for their actions. You're right. They do, both for the negative and the positive. You can't leave one out. If you're going to take accountability for all the negative stuff we've done, man, that's a lot. Don't get me wrong. We need to recognize it to change, but we shouldn't stay focused on those bad things for too long, because, I bet you if we ask your mama, she's going to tell you a lot of good things about you.
Yeah.
So what would your mom say? That, why does she love you? And she's going to give you a whole list of fantastic reasons. So, so you can find us at OTB Nonprofit on Facebook. And so that's 24/7. And in addition, we do run 2 video peer support groups twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. on Zoom. So once again, you can go to our website or our Facebook group and just hit the Zoom link and it will log you in, and join us in for some conversation. Tell us tell us what's good, and and if anything's bothering you, we're there to listen too, because sometimes before we start focusing on the good stuff, we need to vent sometimes.
Yeah.
We're all pent up. Hey, I got a big old ear, and right. We're here to listen for you. We're musicians. We love listening. So.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Love that, Ace. Hey, let me ask you this. So is it only for musicians, or is this for the general public? Like who's invited to attend these Zoom conferences or events rather?
Well, yeah. So Zoom stuff, anybody come on in. We do focus on music related topics. If we have a room full of musicians, we may be talking about, things that are happening on the road or things like that. But at the end of the day, we're there to care and be supportive for as many people as we can and who need it. So
love it. Hey, Ace Piva, Ace, I'm waiting on your TED Talk. You let me know when you hitting that red dot, because I see it coming, man. This is some great stuff, Ace. Love your energy, love your what you're doing. And yeah, you have to let us know if you guys are doing anything in the States in the future. Definitely keep me posted. Let me know, and we will definitely look forward to having you back. All right, guys. Ace Piva, who is the co-founder of Over the Bridge organization out of Toronto. Ace, you were saying before I cut you off?
Oh, I was just saying, next time I'm in Houston, I'll make sure to give you a little email, and we'll get together. So I'll bring you out to the show. So whenever things get back to normal, you'll be my first one to call. So.
Sounds good, Ace. Sounds good. All right. So thanks for taking the time to speak to us. You enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thank you very much for having me. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for hanging out with us here on SOB. We hope this episode has been resourceful. If you'd like to check out the latest articles or follow Keetria's website updates, just log on to Keetria.com or follow her on Twitter at KEETRIA.